Right now, you're constantly keeping your calories low and doing workouts all the time, going to these crazy classes, thinking that that is what is going to get you results. But there's a problem. It's not working. You've literally been doing this for years and you really don't ever see any progress. Maybe you lose a little bit of weight, but then you just gain it all right back. And not only that, but it feels so miserable and restrictive. Well, there's a reason that eating so little and exercising so hard all of the time isn't working. It's because number one, this is slowing down your metabolism, making it even harder to lose body fat and even easier to gain it back. And secondly, this strategy is not building any muscle. Muscle is going to speed up your metabolism, and it's also what's going to make you look smooth, firm, toned, and defined the way that you actually want. You don't just want to be skinny and mushy, you want to have a snatched, defined physique. So in today's video, I'm going to teach you how to fix this and finally get your dream results. How to stop doing this insanity of low calories all the time, exercising like crazy, and never getting anywhere, and how to actually eat more and work out less, but finally get the dream defined physique you've always wanted. What's going on, Fit Fam? Welcome on back to my channel. My name is Megan Janice. I'm an online nutrition and fitness coach for women, and I teach you ladies how to eat way more food without any restrictions and work out smarter instead of harder, so you can build that banging, sexy, feminine hourglass physique and maintain it year-round for life with ease. So if you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that like and subscribe. Come follow me over on Instagram for even more fitness content. And if you're coming on back, thanks so much for joining for another video. All right, fam, tell me if you can relate to the story. You work out pretty much every single day. You push yourself super hard. You always make sure that you're breaking a sweat. And then you're being super mindful with your diet. You're really keeping your calories low. You're saying no to anything that you think is bad. You're trying to get the protein in. But it seems like even though you do those things, you just can't lose any body fat. It seems like you only gain more and more, or you maybe lose a little bit and you gain it all back. Or maybe you're skinny, but you're still kind of flabby and mushy instead of being snatched, toned, and defined the way that you want. Well, this was the exact case with so many of my clients before they worked with me. Like my girl Casey here. She was running every single day, 4 miles, always dieting, cutting out the bad things, but she felt like no matter what she did, she just gained more weight. And then boom, since working with me, I taught her how to eat way more food, work out less, but do it smarter instead of harder. And she's lost 20 pounds, gotten so much muscle definition, gotten super strong, and has now easily maintained this. So why does this happen? Well, it's because you need an actual strategy that is custom to your body. And just eating really low calorie, depriving yourself all the time, and doing tons of hardcore exercise is not a strategy. I know you think you're supposed to eat less and move more to get results, but that's actually not how it works. You have to understand the science of your body and then understand how to create a strategy that's custom for you and your goals, and when and how to continually update that strategy. So the first thing to understand is to know what it is that you actually want to achieve with your physique. So you want to be lean, you want to be toned, you want to have that sexy muscle definition, look fit and strong. This means that you need to both take fat off your body, but you also need to build a lot of muscle. The key to getting away from this constant yo-yo dieting and being really miserable and restrictive is to realize that you are going to have lasting success when you speed up your metabolism, when you get a nice fast metabolism and you can maintain that, and when you build all of the muscle, which is going to make you look good, and furthermore, it's going to make you strong. It's also going to give you better hormones and, once again, a faster metabolism, because muscle costs a lot of calories to even have on your body, unlike body fat. Okay, so we want to lose fat, gain muscle, and with that, have a fast metabolism to keep the results. So the question is, how do you do that? Well, essentially, overall, you need to be eating more food, and there doesn't have to be any restrictions, and you need to be working out less, but just doing it smarter instead of harder. So what that further means is that when it's on the working out side, it's not just doing a whole bunch of crazy classes or just doing whatever random workouts you find online. You need to follow an actual plan, repeat the same workouts for several weeks at a time. You know, I really think you should repeat them at least 8 weeks, and really you should be ideally trying to get as strong as possible, lifting weights, really pushing yourself, really challenging yourself in the gym. Now, you really only need to do this 4 days a week. That is plenty. I only train 4 days a week. The vast majority of my clients only train 4 days a week, and we're all getting really good results. Every now and then you can maybe add in a 5th day that's kind of just supplementing some of the body parts that you want to extra emphasize, but honestly, this is really not necessary a lot of the time. And that would only be if you feel really good and feel like you're recovered from your workouts. But honestly, just 4 times a week is enough. You do not need to be working out 6-7 days a week. This is actually going to give you worse results because you're just doing a bunch of random stuff instead of it being directly targeted towards building that sculpted, defined physique, aka getting strong and building a lot of muscle. So make sure to push yourself hard, really stimulate your muscles with the weights you lift. So I'm not going to get too much into the training component in this video, but that is definitely a prerequisite. No matter if your goal is to lose a lot of body fat or to build bigger glutes and a smaller waist, this applies equally because muscle gain is so important for you to have the shape, but also to lose body fat and keep it off and then get a fast metabolism. So if you want to know more about what your training should look like, all the details of how to maximize your efforts from what you put into your workouts in the results you see, then I have a video you can check out here that's going to break down how to do that. Okay, the other aspect, and this is really the most important part, is that if you know you need to be speeding up metabolism, gaining muscle, and keeping body fat levels relatively low, that means you need to be specifically dedicated towards phases that are moving you in one direction or the other. And there are 3 phases that you can be in outside of just maintaining, which is technically a 4th. Those 3 phases are reverse dieting, cutting, and building. Reverse dieting is where you gradually increase the amount of food that you eat so that your body's maintenance level, the amount of calories your body requires to stay exactly as it is right now, will increase. Because what happens is as you very gradually get your body adapted to eating more food, your body actually starts to process more calories. It starts to burn more calories all the time, so your metabolism is picking up. Now again, this is why I said it's so important that you're also pairing really good quality training where you're really pushing your muscles hard, because actually building muscle in your workouts is the best thing you can do to speed up metabolism, and then with that, to get that sexy toned look and to take body fat off. So a reverse diet is generally the very first stage that you're going to want to do, and it's also something you're going to come back to in between muscle building and fat loss phases. So those are the other 2. A fat loss phase is called a cut. This is where you're in a calorie deficit to maximize the amount of fat you can take off your body while still keeping your metabolism as fast as possible and maintaining as much muscle as possible. And now, once you've gotten lean enough, once you've taken enough fat off of your body, that is when you're going to eventually also go into your muscle building phase. This is traditionally called a bulk. You probably have heard cutting and bulking. So building is where you're in a slight calorie surplus so that you have an excess amount of energy to put something on your body that isn't there right now, which is the muscle. And that is the thing that is going to really shape and define your body, and it's also what's going to speed up your metabolism. Now, you are going to gain some weight while you're in a muscle building phase, just like you are going to lose weight while you're in a fat loss phase, because you're in a deficit versus being in a surplus, which means gaining. So after you have been gaining, putting on muscle for a bit, eventually you are going to go back to doing a cut, going back to doing a fat loss phase to trim down any little bit of body fat that you gained along the way with building the muscle, and then you can easily trim down that fluff and reveal all this sexy muscle definition underneath. So let me explain what this looks like with a couple client examples. First, starting off with a reverse diet, going into a cut. This is the most common thing that people are usually going to have to do in the beginning of their fitness journey, unless you are already quite skinny. I'll talk about what that would be if that's you in a moment. But let's say you definitely have some body fat to lose and you are not technically very skinny right now. What you're first going to need to do is really get your metabolism to be thriving and get yourself in a good position to go into a calorie deficit. Because when you want to maximize your fat loss, you really want to have as much room as you possibly can to drop your calories so you can lose as much fat as possible without having to go to such stupidly low calories and feeling really miserable and restrictive, and also slowing down your metabolism. So here's one of our clients, Danielle, who came into the program wanting to lose body fat, and she was already averaging about 2,000 calories a day, which is actually a pretty good amount of food, but we still did a little bit of a reverse diet with her first. We gradually brought her food up to about 2,300 calories a day, and then that is when we moved into the fat loss phase, which she's now been in for about 6 months, and she's lost 22 pounds since she has been cutting. So we were able to get her up to 2,300 calories. So now at the very end of her cut, she's only at 1,700. But actually the majority of the fat loss that she's experienced was around 1,900 to 2,000 calories a day. So this is how you set this up, where she doesn't have to go so low in calories, right? Like 1,700 calories a day is not really that low. And she's able to lose weight like clockwork, literally seeing that scale drop consistently over time. Now, when she comes to the end of her fat loss phase, what we're going to do is another reverse diet to get out of the cutting phase, because what you want to do is to be able to maintain the results you got from cutting, from losing the weight in your deficit. You want to get your metabolism once again readapted to burning more calories at a higher intake. So the way that you reverse diet is essentially you bring in around 50 to 100 calories every 1 to 2 weeks. And usually that's going to be mainly to carbs and over time also a little bit to fat. Now, exactly when and how you decide to do this comes down to you actually having data to work with. It is so important that you actually evaluate your body and how it's responding, because if you're not doing that, you are hoping and guessing. You're just saying like, okay, well, like, I guess I should cut my calories, or I guess I should increase my calories, without actually knowing that that's what your body is asking for based on the data. So this is why it is so important that you are weighing yourself every single day, keeping track of that weight in an actual graph so you can see what the trend is looking like over time. And then the other thing is taking weekly progress photos. And then you also need to make sure that you're tracking your macros and tracking your workouts, because you need to have consistent data, right? You have to see what happens to my body. How does my body respond when I consistently eat this specific amount of food and when I consistently do this set of workouts? What do I see happen with the scale? What do I see happen with my photos? And what do I see happening with my biofeedback? So things like hunger, energy levels, all of that, because that is how you then evaluate based on that information to know when it's the right time for you to be increasing your food in a reverse diet, or when it's the right time for you to be making a drop into a deficit. So I know that this is a lot of information. I definitely made tons of other videos about how to reverse diet and then cut, so I'll link that here. But of course, if you don't want to have to figure this all out on your own, if it feels confusing and overwhelming, that's exactly why we have the one-to-one online coaching program that we have, where we create a completely custom strategy designed for your body, your goals, and we guide you along every single step of the way, so that ultimately over time you're building lots of sexy muscle and losing lots of body fat to ultimately get to your dream results. Okay, so if you are somebody who is not starting their fitness journey already being very skinny, the first step for you is definitely going to be to reverse diet to speed up your metabolism, and while reversing that you're also putting on some muscle and decreasing some body fat, and then eventually that you are moving into your actual cut, into your calorie deficit to lose as much body fat as you possibly can. Usually it's going to be, you know, at least 10 pounds if you don't have so much fat to lose, but let's say somewhere between 20 to 30 pounds if you do have a bit more weight to lose. That's really typical with what we see with our clients. Now, after you've lost that 10 to 30 pounds, depending on how much you have to lose, potentially even more, what you're going to do is reverse diet out of your cut. And now, assuming if you are actually already lean, or let's say you're coming into your fitness journey and you are a lean individual, you are already pretty skinny, but you're just not as toned, as shapely and hourglassy as you would want to be, this is where you're going to go reverse and then build. You're not going to do your cut yet. That is going to come later down the road because you're already lean, you're already quite skinny. So focusing on fat loss does not make sense for you, because if you're already somebody who's small and you're trying to take fat off your body, you're just going to be disappointed because there's not going to be any shape underneath. That's what you actually want. You want to see all that sexy definition and have, you know, the small waist, popping glutes, sculpted legs. That's going to come from muscle gain. So you are in a perfect position to be focusing on gaining weight from muscle right now because you're already skinny. You don't have 20 plus pounds of body fat to lose. So what you're going to do is you're going to reverse diet, getting your calories gradually up and up and up. Make sure that you're training hard, doing your best to put on as much muscle as you can from your workouts. And then again, you're keeping track of your weight, you're keeping track of your photos, and you're going to know that you move from reverse diet into an actual build phase when you start to see that the scale is consistently moving in an upward direction. Now, you don't want to see that the scale is going up too quickly, because if that's happening, then you're actually just gaining body fat instead of gaining lots of muscle, which is what we want to have happen. So it really should be a gradual weight increase, somewhere between 1 to 2 pounds on average per month. So really, really gradual. Let's say you do that for around 6 months, that's going to be close to about 10 pounds gained, and that can make a really big difference in the way that you look. You can go from looking kind of skinny fat and shapeless to actually looking really snatched and hourglassy. So this is exactly the transformation transformation that I went through. I used to be somebody who thought that you just had to cut all the time. And I was, lean, but I was always disappointed that I didn't have more of an hourglass shape, especially that I did not see all that sexy definition and shape in my lower body. And it wasn't until I hired my own mentor to finally help me figure out what to do that I did my first ever muscle build phase, where I went into the calorie surplus and actually focused on gaining weight, that my physique completely transformed. That is when I finally got the popping glutes and bubble butt that I had always wanted, after previously really having not very much to show in that department, and how I finally got the really sculpted leg definition I had always wanted. So that's what you're going to do if you are kind of skinny right now, even potentially a little bit quote unquote skinny fat, because you're probably going to be able to lose some of the body fat and then still put on the shape as you're going through your muscle build phase. For example, that's also what I did with my client Bethany here. She came to me just kind of flabby and mushy, even though she was working out all of the time and being really mindful with her intake. But the problem is she just wasn't eating enough food, and she was doing really random workouts. So instead, I got her to train properly in the gym, lifting weights, getting really strong just 4 days a week, and then took her through this process of reversing, building, and then doing a small cut after the fact and before going back to building. So we went all the way from where she started the program at about 1,500 calories a day up to about 2,300 calories a day, and then did a short cutting phase only down to 1,800, and now we're back to 2,300 a day. So that's how this works. You really need to be cycling through different phases. You need to be dedicated towards muscle gain or fat loss, and the secret is to not just keep your calories so low all the time. That is how you get nowhere, because you are slowing down your metabolism and you are not building any muscle when that is your strategy, to just eat really little and do a ton of random exercise. Instead, you need to be intentional with your exercise. It needs to be muscle gain focused, and you also need to be intentional with which phase you're in. You need to either be reverse dieting, cutting, or building, because you need to be moving in the direction of a faster metabolism, more muscle, or more fat loss. That is ultimately how you're going to get to your dream physique. And again, if you don't want to have to figure this out on your own, that's exactly why we have a one-to-one coaching program, where we're going to design a completely custom strategy for you, guide you through these phases of reverse dieting, cutting, and building, so that you're going to lose the body fat, gain all that sexy muscle definition, and get a thriving metabolism, so you can keep your results for good year-round for the rest of your life. So if you're interested, click on the link in the description. We would love to hear from you and see if our program would be a good fit. All right, fam, thank you so much for checking out this video. And next, I want you to go watch this one here, where I'm going to break down more specifically how to do a reverse diet, and then how to move into a cutting phase, the exact details of how to set up your food and workouts, so that you can see more about what this process looks like and how effective it is. So I'll see you in that video.